a fireside chat with AWS and Progress Chef. Specifically, we're going to be talking today about how we can be better together for a smarter infrastructure. My name is George Westwater, Senior Director of Engineering here at Progress, and I'm joined today by Pravindra.
Thanks, George. Hi, everyone. My name is Pravindra Singh. I'm a Partner Solutions Architect with AWS. So we're pretty excited to have this fireside chat with George from Progress Chef. Specifically, we're going to discuss and touch on the hybrid cloud management, continuous compliance, and AI operations. We'll also explore on how AWS Systems Manager and Chef work together and provide a unified control access for the environments, how Chef's InSpec enhances AWS Control Tower's compliance capabilities. And in the end, we are also checking or touching base on how leveraging Amazon Bedrock for future AI operations. That note, let's dive in. So George, to kickstart that discussion, I'm going to touch a little bit on the hybrid cloud management and the systems manager. So as customers approach or go through their migration journey within the cloud and they transform their businesses, so some find themselves in a situation where they have to manage IT operations in a hybrid or a multi-cloud environment. We do have systems manager, but the goal has always been to give customers like a single operational plane. But as changing landscape, it's never about managing EC2 instances anymore, right? Like any take on that?
Yeah, we're seeing a very similar hybrid ecosystem approach, Pravindra, even if it's just during the migration journey where customers can't move everything from on-prem to AWS, or maybe they have some specific regulatory reasons that they can't do that. So we're really seeing that a lot of our customers are looking for that consistency, whether the workload lives in AWS or some other cloud provider, or on their on-prem data center. So where we really see the synergy between Chef Client and Systems Manager starts to lean in and shine. We can give you that declarative policy-based configuration approach, that true desired state configuration and enforcement. And then when you overlay Systems Manager on top of it, you get this secure, reliable control plane that can really run anywhere that someone is looking for, from any cloud to any edge.
That's actually that's pretty robust and right situation. Like, and as I mentioned, not about EC2 anymore. We also do see customers running Systems Manager across multi-cloud and on-prem infrastructure, even though AWS Outpost with AWS Outpost as well. So AWS Outpost brings the full AWS experience to customers, their own data centers, and with System Manager running natively there, it's just like in the cloud. So I agree on that fact, what you mentioned.
I think it's huge when we think about including things like Outpost. We've always been really big on making sure that the customers have the right regulatory control and they have the same compliance and configuration workflows everywhere. And when you're going through that journey and you have those specific needs for edge-based computing or inside the data center, Outpost is a fantastic way to go about this. And when you think about running Chef in the traditional configuration sense, where we're converging every 30 minutes or 15 to prevent drift, you sometimes need that extra nudge, that real-time workflow, that component to say, do this now. And Systems Manager's automation documents really provide that on-demand capability, whether it's I need to do something now or I need a break glass operation. Regardless of where you're running, this gives you really that capability. And we can kind of imagine that in a scenario where I have an outpost, maybe on-prem, and I'm in middle of migration, some legacy systems here and they're sprinkled in. I need to trigger an on-demand compliance workflow. Maybe I'm in the middle of an audit, or maybe there's a potential CVE that I want to check for vulnerability. We trigger that all straight through Systems Manager using Chef Client on those machines. No need for extra management silos, no need for additional tooling. We can all run natively together.
That's actually a pretty robust point. And what I take on-demand part's the key here when you mention it. So because the dynamic nature of the cloud, and we also see the ever-changing security landscape, which also means customers would need more checks and balances. So with Systems Manager, you can run command or automation to execute Chef clients across the fleet instantly. So that would mean that you're verifying your configuration drifts, your patch status, and the compliance posture all at once. So I totally agree with you in that combination of a better together story. That's a pretty good take on it.
When I take that even further, we look at Chef's agent model plus our capability to run in what we call zero mode or target mode for different operations. it really complements that need fantastically. When we think about evolving ecosystems, you mentioned security landscape and changing. Whether it's you're running auto scaling groups or complicated EKS clusters, there's no need to introduce new dependencies or new execution. Just simply run your existing workloads using Chef, use Systems Manager to provide that same logic and secure through that entire Systems Manager channel. It really ends up with an efficient and auditable, and more importantly, consistent way to handle your operations at scale.
And I agree with you. And if you think of it where customers really see the value, and they should, it's a unified control plane with the deep automation. If we take into consideration for AWS, system managers would provide that reach and visibility, but to a point that when Chef's Better Together story will bring in more intelligence enforcement along those lines. So yeah, I agree with that.
The thing I think that it's really important for us to lean into is AWS has always had this notion of we want to remove that undifferentiated heavy lifting, whether it was for racking and stacking or et cetera. Whether we're being an AWS customer or our customers are, we want to really help bridge that operational gap, especially in those hybrid environments or during those transition times for migration. It's not today, everybody's not in the same cloud, they're not all in, but Systems Manager really helps give you that access. We can ensure compliance and configuration once you're in your target area, but you can bring the compute to wherever it's needed.
And I agree. And if I wanted to take away anything from this, any of the teams who are listening, if you're an architect or a DevOps teams who are building the solution on the hybrid approach, the hybrid management from our discussion, it goes into does not have to mean a fragmented management. So that's the take I would take. Yeah.
I would double down on that and say whether you're using Outpost to extend your cloud on-premise or Systems Manager to orchestrate across environments, we're here to ensure the same configuration and standards follow your workload, make things nice and simple. I know we're focusing on Systems Manager, but Session Manager and all of the other capabilities that we see in that systems management fleet are a fantastic operational overlay as your infrastructure scales.
And that's exactly where we started a discussion, the Better Together story of the power of combining AWS with Chef's reliability on the same policy. And I agree the same control wherever your workload lives can benefit to any of the customers with that Better Together story on that.
I think that actually sets us up really nicely for the next item here. We're talking a little bit about Systems Manager and how to do enforcement or change, but what happens when you try to make compliance become continuous and you want to scale your AWS footprint? And we really see that from the Chef perspective being about control tower and integration with InSpec. Being able to just enforce workloads or do change isn't enough in today's world. We have regulatory requirements, we have auditing, and when we talk about those hybrid environments, compliance becomes quickly a much more complicated situation. You can almost think about it like the next frontier of your DevOps evolution or cloud migration is really focusing on that. And we can't treat it just like a once-a-year audit. Maybe you're doing quarterly internal audits or responding to incidents. It has to be continuous and consistent and measurable. And we really see the partnership between InSpec and Control Tower highlighting that area. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
That's a very good segue on our discussion. And you're absolutely right. So Control Tower gives the customers that starting framework where it could be from the landing zone, account baseline, guardrails, or for that matter, even multi-account governance. But as we were discussing, as the customers would mature, they also want to move to more structured governance by evidence rather than just by structure. So that's where I think Chef, like partners like Chef, could really take it further. And again, I would want to reiterate that Better Together on that combination, that's a pretty robust solution.
Right. Control Tower gives you that preventative and detection controls right out of the box. But if you're on the call or you're thinking about how do I validate that all those accounts or standards meet internal compliance or as well as external compliance, that's where we see that InSpec layer, that continuous auditing capability. And we really like the pattern when you're using Control Tower to pair that up with AWS Lambda. So InSpec can run automatic scans triggered by Control Tower lifecycle events, new account spin up or other scheduled actions for you to be able to make sure that you have all of the audit data necessary whenever you need it.
It's actually a pretty good point. And the power of Lambda, you're right, it runs your code without managing servers. It's serverless, stands up scan. You don't have to stand up your infrastructure. It's right there for you when you need it. And to add to it, yes, Lambda function can inspect profiles. Now, whether it would be your benchmarks like CIS or for your corporate controls, that can be taken care of. And then you can write it directly into AWS Security Hub, Amazon S3, or even like Chef Automate for reporting, right?
I think it's a really good point. It really means that compliance itself becomes event-driven instead of periodic. We know that these one-time events, detecting and fixing drift, when it shows up monthly or quarterly, it could be very, very hard to fix. Your point earlier about a changing security landscape and growing fleet, we really think that there's some patterns out there that can make this better. Use Control Tower to set the environments up, let Lambda trigger those scans whenever an event has occurred, and the resulting areas should be back into your compliance tool of choice, whether that's Security Hub or your own internal data lake that you're managing as well. That evidence of compliance automatically generated, let's get rid of the days of spreadsheet auditing. We're not going to walk between nodes anymore. Let's just have the data ready for us when we need it.
And I agree. And on top of it, all of this scales pretty beautifully and robustly. You can start with the Control Tower's managed account, but the same pattern extends to the hybrid environments as well, using System Manager or even AWS Outpost to complement it. I agree with it, yes.
So nice full circle there. I think that's whether it's VMs in Outpost or EC2 instances, or any of your cloud resources, be it an S3 bucket or an RDS instance, Inspect runs the same profiles, so your CIS policies, benchmarks, or internal policies are consistently validated. The power of Inspect for us really is in that declarative, natural language tool that you can use regardless of the environment, and allows you to track whether it's OS settings or application-specific profiles. You get one vocabulary across your entire enterprise.
And I would add to it, yeah, that's where most of the customers would also see the struggle with that consistency of interpretation. So, but I would like to iterate that with Inspect integrated into Control Tower and Amazon Lambda, compliance moves from more towards the codified, verifiable state from a more human interpreted state. So that's a pretty robust move, I would say.
Well, so it's an interesting way to transition to our last topic of the day before we open it up for anybody who might have questions. And you talked about human interpretation. So why don't we talk a little bit about Bedrock?
Yeah, thanks you brought it up. I don't think any conversation would be complete today with the AI, the landscape changing. So we have seen as organizations begin to bring their AI into their operation and DevOps workflows specifically. One of the questions which comes up pretty much every time is how do we keep our data secure and governed? That's exactly where I would want to bring Amazon Bedrock into the conversation. Bedrock's is designed in a way that it's open, API compatible, gives customers the flexibility of models. However, it also keeps on maintaining a complete control and visibility of the data. So any take on that? I know Progress is working on some of the AI capabilities. Wanted to get your take on it.
We could probably spend the next couple hours talking about all of the AI initiatives that are going on in the world right now. But I think for us, one of the key reasons we chose Bedrock as part of our Progress Agentic RAG initiatives and internal AI processes that we're working on is to be able to accelerate the upgrade and creation of actions on behalf of our customers while really respecting that data sensitivity. So we're working on a tool right now to be able to help users upgrade their chef cookbooks and compliance profiles automatically. Something that used to take weeks or months can now be done in hours or days. So we need to change something, we need a policy implemented, it becomes much easier. And a significant enhancement to what we see inside of Bedrock is the Open API compatibility or the Open AI's compatibility. So whether you're using a GPT-o1 preview on Bedrock with Open API compatibility, or you're making more refined models, not only can you use the data security that comes with Bedrock, but you can fine tune your own models and still use our orchestration layers on top. So nice hybrid between data security, customer enhancements, and also, I would say, centralization.
That's a pretty good example on how the use case would come in, because as I mentioned, Bedrock isn't just a collection of models, it's fully managed and governed. Now, when we're talking about privacy and security, the data stays private for a customer. What that I mean, it's not that we never use the data to train any of the models. And it's always handled according to the customer's own security and compliance boundaries. And for that matter, I would like to add like teams like your at Chef, which would also mean a lot because a lot of configuration data, the policy templates, and the compliance results, they often include some of the sensitive infrastructure information, right?
Exactly correct. In the past, if you wanted to, let's say, use AI to analyze or refactor some of that infrastructure as code or compliance as code, you had to make some trade-offs. Am I comfortable sending that data to an external system? Do I scrub it ahead of time? Do I anonymize it? Or do you build your own stack? Do you invest in that one? The undifferentiated heavy lifting, I think, comes back into play here. Do you really want to be spending the time standing that infrastructure up? Or should I be just trusting Amazon Bedrock to be able to maintain the security and compliance needs that I have? Especially when we combine that with Control Tower and Inspec, I have not only the security and trust I have of AWS, I have the constant auditing capability. We have a new tool, Progress Agentic RAG, that seamlessly integrates with Amazon Bedrock. Through its Amazon Bedrock's robust APIs. I know you mentioned it's more than just models, it's a whole ecosystem for us to work with. And the range of foundational models that lets us choose, we can deliver customers, here's a nice upgrade experience, but let them really tailor it and tweak it to their own internal business needs, while still being completely governed and staying within the AWS ecosystem.
That's a pretty good approach and also a very robust one for the customers to look at. And to me, I think it also opens doors for a more broader use cases. One of them which comes to my mind that, as you mentioned, like now you can feed chef's compliance reports or cookbook metadata directly into Amazon Bedrock. And in turn, you can use Amazon Bedrock to surface insights or even recommend optimizations as a use case. So that's a pretty robust use case from the RAG infrastructure, which Chef's going to bring in.
And I can imagine workflows where customers do send those compliance gains that were generated from Inspec directly into Amazon Bedrock and then get summarizations of findings back from Bedrock so that we don't even have to read reports anymore. We can start to build agentic workflows that give us that true AI ops assisted workflows that we're looking for, but completely governed, allowing us together to build towards a faster remediation, faster updates, and ultimately faster time to value without, of course, sacrificing any security on any of our data.
That's actually a pretty perfect balance when I look at it. So we're giving an open environment for the developers when it matters for the developing of the application. However, we are also giving a security and robust secured environment when it matters to the enterprises. Now, on that note, I think I would like to thank everybody for joining in today. And I know we have covered a lot, but as part of just providing a gist of it, we've covered a powerful combination of AWS and Chef as a better together story across hybrid environments, continuous compliance and AI operations on top of it. The key takeaways, if I would want to take it, is whether you're managing hybrid infrastructures or ensuring compliance or embracing AI operations, AWS and Chef in that they provide together tools and capabilities where customers would need for a secure and an efficient future-ready operations. I would highly encourage anybody who's listening on or who is looking into a use case, explore these solutions, reach out to me or George or the team about questions about implementing any of the capabilities for your organizations. On that note, George, over to you for any closing remarks you will have.
Well, Pravinder, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with everybody today through this virtual session. But my closing remarks for everybody is you have more tools today than you are aware of. And this better together scenario where we're just talking about 3 very simple use cases, when you combine the power of Chef, Inspec, Habitat, that whole fleet of tools that you currently have with the diverse ecosystem and governance and guardrails that AWS gives you, you can take all of that power that's available there and use it in ways that you might not have thought about. Maybe you weren't thinking about how to use Inspec to govern your Bedrock implementations or to prove to people that you meet certain compliance standards. You already have the tools, let's just put them to work for you. So in that, I'm gonna wrap this session up. We'll take some questions if there are any. Before we wait for anybody, I actually have a question for you, Pravinder. We talked a little bit about Bedrock, and I think that one of the things, whether it's with Chef or otherwise, it can be a little scary trying to get into understanding how to build a AI-based agent or customized workflow. How easy is it to get started with Bedrock?
I would say pretty easy. It's like an API-based platform which we have provided. And as I was mentioning before, Amazon Bedrock will have a collection of foundational models readily available for customers to use. Security is paramount on whatever we do. We do not share the data even to the model providers. We do not use it to learn. Also, there are guardrails within the infrastructure which customers can use it. There are a lot of model provided options or model distillation where customers can choose the models, whichever is used for the best use case. And if we combine it with Chef, I would say it would become a pretty robust solution. And it's pretty easy to spin up any of the Bedrock APIs.
Awesome. So one last thought I have here when you mentioned that, again, better together in other areas is underutilized tools, in my opinion, from the AWS stack. So if we're taking those inspect scans and we're putting them into Bedrock or your data lake, then Amazon QuickSights becomes a really nice, easy way for you to incorporate your own internal reporting, your own internal compliance portals, all powered through Amazon Q's fantastic way to ask questions and deliver insights on top of the data. So just some more use cases for maybe future conversations. If anybody has additional questions or thoughts, or they want to see us talk about items in the future, we're always interested in exploring new ways to bring the power of Chef into your AWS ecosystem and how to work better together to deliver you more results. So I think that we've covered just about everything today. We're going to in turn wrap it up. Hopefully, if anybody has any questions, please reach out to Pravinder or myself. If you're interested in exploring any of our AI integrations or learning more about Bedrock or how we work together with Amazon to deliver solutions at scale, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you all very much and have a fantastic rest of your Thursday.
Thanks, George. Thank you.